many of the oil change shops are scams because of their high prices and the fact that they tell you they did the oil change, but they don't. So CBC confirmed this because what they did was they got secret drivers and they took their company cars to these shops with hidden cameras under the car. And in the camera, you see that these mechanics, they don't even touch anything. They charge you, but they don't even change your oil. So basically today I'm gonna show you how to change your oil by yourself so you don't have to get scammed like this. And so you can be able to know how to change your oil. So first I will tell you what will happen to your car if you don't change your oil. Second, I will tell you different tools and materials you will need. And last, I will show you the step-by-step process. So by showing you these things, you will be able to teach someone else so they don't have to be a victim to these scams and they can save their car. So Des Moines from the Napa Auto Care Center states that if you don't change your oil on time, what would happen is your motor will start running way too hot. And what happens is when your motor runs too hot, the parts begin to wear out and they warp. And then what happens is your motor will start to, it'll stop, it'll just completely die. And what you need to do is you have to spend over $3,000 or $4,000 to have it replaced. So as we can see here, this is your cylinder head. And your cylinder head has to look like that. But if you look at these ones, there's holes. And basically, you still have to spend the same amount of money to replace those parts, but might as well just get it board. And then over here, this is where your piston sits, and if you can see, everything is just blown apart. Usually this should be covered, but everything is just blown apart. So now you know that it is a must to change your oil, but obviously you need tools to do it. So the tools you will need basically is oil from any auto parts store, and when you walk into the store, there's different types of oil. But if you tell them the make and model of your car, they will give you the oil that you need for that car. And then after you get your oil, you're gonna need a big bucket because you're gonna drain your old oil out and you need something for the oil to fall into. And then while you're at the auto parts store, you can pick up a full tool set, which comes with these sockets and a wrench. And after, you will need a floor jack and an oil filter, but later on I'll tell you why you don't really need to change your oil filter. So now you know the tools. Now you have the tools with you, and now it's time for the process. So the process starts off, what you have to do is you have to open up your hood, obviously. And what you're gonna see is you're gonna see a little oil cap right there. And it's usually a no-brainer. It even shows that, it even says oil on it. And what you do is you unscrew that. Once you unscrew it, put that cap somewhere safe where you know where it is. And then after, you grab your floor jack and you lift up the car. So once you lift up the car from the side, make sure you lift it enough so you can fit the bucket under. And obviously when you lift it up, you're gonna have a wheel that's gonna be in air. So what I recommend you guys doing is for safety, just in case the car doesn't drop on you, what you do is you take the wheel out and you put it right next to the jack on this side. You don't see it because the picture's not in full scope, but right here you put the wheel right under the car. So if the jack messes up, it'll just fall right on your wheel. And then after, you get under the car and you're gonna see a bolt. That's basically the only, it's like a really big bolt, and you'll see like a little pan. It's usually black. Sometimes it might be a different color, it might be the color of your motor, but usually you'll just see this bolt. After, what you do is you put the bucket under that bolt, and you start unscrewing that bolt very slowly, because if you do it too fast, what's gonna happen is there's a lot of pressure because obviously the oil is sitting inside the oil pan. So when you unscrew that bolt, it will just pop right out and fall into the bucket. So now you gotta stick your hand in oil to pull the bolt back out. So after, it takes roughly about 10 minutes for the oil to fully empty. And what happens is, you just get out from under the car, you wait a little bit, probably just chill, have a nice beer or something, even though we're not old enough to drink. But so after what you do is once the 10 minutes passes by, get back under the car and screw the bolt back in. But there's the thing about these bolts is that when they make these bolts, they're really like fragile. So if you screw them down too tight, they'll just break. So just screw it down, but not too tight though, so you don't strip it. And then after, usually next to the oil pan, usually in this area or on the other side, there's a little black. It's like black, but it looks like you can unscrew it, and that's called your oil filter. And you you can unscrew that oil filter. It's usually either there or it's gonna be on top of your hood, right next to your oil cap. But that depends on the car. So after you, however though, Gerardo, a mechanic I worked with at a German mechanic shop, said that you don't really need to change your oil filter until like your second or third oil change. So that's basically the hard part, which sounds pretty easy. So yeah, and then after once you get everything done, now you get back up under the car, and whenever you remove that oil cap, you're gonna have an open spot. So obviously you bought oil from an auto parts store, and what you do is you fill up the oil inside the motor, but it's highly recommended that you guys read the service manual that comes with the car. And it's usually in your glove compartment. You guys know the books that usually come with the car. It's good to read it because you don't want to overfill it, because it's basically like you're drowning the parts. So after you fill that, you just close the oil cap and you're basically pretty much done. Right next to it, you'll see that little yellow thing where you can stick your finger into and pull out. It's called the oil dipstick. That shows you if your oil is in the right place or if it's not. So what happens is you pull it out, and initially you wipe off the end and you put it back in. When you put it back in, you let it sit for about a minute and then you pull it back out. And if the end is fully covered in oil, your car's done. You just changed your oil. After you put everything back together, and then you put your wheel back into place, you lower the car. When you lower the car, it's going to relieve pressure off the wheel, so you're going to have to extra tighten those wheels, because you don't want to be driving and then the wheel flies off. So you're going to have to tighten it. And then what you do is you start up the car and you let it run for a little bit, and while it's running, you obviously have a bucket filled with your old oil, and you have bottles filled with that are empty now because you filled them. You grab that bucket and you start filling up those old bottles so you can take it back to the car shop and you can recycle them. And then after that, while your car is running, make sure you look under just in case you're not leaking. And basically, after everything is done, you filled up the bottles, just get inside the car, take it for a test drive, drive around the block, or drive it to the shop so you can recycle the oil and come back. So now you know how to change your oil, now you know why it is important, and it's a must. You have to do it so your car can just keep going and not fail you. And first I told you what would happen if you don't change it. Second, I told you the different tools and materials you would need. And last, I showed you the step-by-step process. And to close it off, change your oil, care for your motor, love your motor, and most